The fluorescent lights of O'Hare International Airport buzzed overhead like angry wasps, casting everything in that particular shade of institutional white that made even the healthiest complexion look sallow. I stood frozen beside Carousel 3, my carry-on clutched in numb fingers, watching Ryan's mouth move as he delivered words that seemed to come from very far away. I can't do this anymore, Sophia. I can't. The crowd surged around us, a river of travelers parting around our little island of devastation. Somewhere behind me, a child wailed. The conveyor belt groaned as it disgorged luggage in an endless mechanical rhythm. My suitcase went past once, twice, 3 times before I registered its presence. Everything felt distant, muffled, as if I were underwater. You're breaking up with me? Now? Here? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too high, too thin. We're supposed to be going to Chicago for your conference. We have hotel reservations. You said you wanted me to meet your colleagues. Ryan wouldn't meet my eyes. His gaze skittered away, focusing on something over my left shoulder. He dressed carefully this morning in his favorite navy blazer, the one that made his shoulders look broader than they were. I'd helped him pick it out 3 months ago. Had he known even then? Had he already been planning this moment? I met someone else. The words landed like physical blows. It just happened, Sophia. I didn't mean for it to, but she gets me. She understands my career aspirations in a way you never did. A laugh escaped me, sharp and bitter as burnt coffee. Your career aspirations? I've been supporting you for 2 years, Ryan. I took on extra shifts at the hospital so you could attend networking events. I edited your resume at 3 a.m. That's just it, he interrupted, finally looking at me. His hazel eyes, which I'd once found so warm, now seemed cold and dismissive. You're a nurse, Sophia. Ashley is an investment banker. She moves in the same circles I do. She can help me advance. The airport seemed to tilt slightly. I pressed my hand against the cold metal of a nearby pillar to steady myself. Ashley, your colleague from work. The one you said was just a friend. She's on the same flight, Ryan continued, oblivious to or uncaring about the way his words shredded what was left of my dignity. Actually, she's probably already through security. First-class boards in 20 minutes. He glanced at his watch, an expensive piece I knew he couldn't afford. Or could he? How much about this man did I actually know? So you've been planning this? It wasn't a question. The pieces were falling into place with horrible clarity. The late-night strategy sessions and the weekend team-building retreats. The way he'd started criticizing everything about me over the past few months. My clothes, my hair, my lack of interest in his tedious office politics. Look, I'll PayPal you money for the hotel cancellation. He was already backing away, eager to escape, to return to his shiny new life with his shiny new girlfriend who understood his ambitions. Take care of yourself, okay? And then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd, leaving me standing alone beside the luggage carousel with my suitcase, making its endless circuit, and my carry-on hanging from my shoulder like a dead weight. Around me, reunions unfolded with squeals of delight and warm embraces. A young couple kissed passionately beside the escalator. An elderly man held flowers for someone who hadn't arrived yet. I grabbed my suitcase on its next pass, my hands moving mechanically, while my mind remained stuck in a loop of disbelief. 2 years. 2 years of my life poured into a relationship with a man who saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone, easily discarded when someone better came along. The bathroom offered temporary sanctuary. I locked myself in a stall and let the tears come, quiet and bitter. My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. Probably Ryan, making sure I'd received his blood money PayPal transaction. I ignored it. The fluorescent light hummed its indifferent song. Someone in the next stall was talking loudly on their phone about a business deal gone wrong. When the tears finally subsided, I emerged to splash cold water on my face. The mirror reflected a stranger, red-rimmed eyes, blotchy cheeks, mascara smudged beneath my lower lashes. I looked exactly like what I was, a woman who'd just been publicly humiliated at an airport. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. Transaction received, $200 from Ryan Mitchell. $200 for 2 years. I laughed, and the sound echoed harshly off the tile walls. A woman washing her hands gave me a concerned glance before hurrying out. I'd taken the week off work for this trip, used precious vacation days I'd been hoarding. My apartment in Philadelphia would be waiting, cold and empty. I had nowhere to go and nothing to do except return home and explain to everyone that Ryan and I were finished, that I'd been naive enough to believe his lies about our future together. The thought of the return flight made my stomach turn. Hours in coach, squeezed between strangers, with nothing to do but replay every moment of our relationship and identify the exact points where I'd been too stupid to see what was happening. Screw it, I muttered, startling myself with the decision even as I made it. I wasn't going home. Not yet. I'd come to Chicago, and I'd stay in Chicago. I'd use my own money I'd earned through double shifts and holiday overtime, to book a hotel room and spend a few days wandering a city I'd never seen. Alone. Without Ryan and his dismissive comments and his career aspirations. The relief of having a plan, even a foolish one, steadied me slightly. I repaired my makeup as best I could, squared my shoulders, and wheeled my suitcase back into the terminal. The departures board showed Ryan's flight to Chicago had already started boarding. First-class passengers were probably settling into their spacious seats, accepting complimentary champagne, while I stood here trying to figure out which airline had the next available economy seat to the same destination. "Excuse me." The voice came from behind me, deep and accented in a way I couldn't quite place. "Italian, maybe?" "I couldn't help but overhear your earlier conversation. My apologies for eavesdropping." I turned to find a man who seemed to have stepped out of a different reality entirely. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on a fashion magazine cover rather than in an airport terminal. His charcoal suit probably cost more than my monthly rent. A watch that screamed expensive money glinted at his wrist. But it was his eyes that caught my attention, dark as espresso, studying me with an intensity that felt both invasive and strangely kind. "I'm sorry," I managed, thrown off balance by his sudden appearance. "The gentleman who just left you." His mouth curved slightly, though I wouldn't call it a smile exactly. "He's an idiot, if you'll forgive the observation." Heat flooded my cheeks. Of course someone had witnessed my humiliation. Why not make it complete? Thank you? I don't. I shook my head, at a loss for words. "You were planning to go to Chicago, yes?" He slid his hands into his pockets, the gesture somehow making him look more approachable despite his obvious wealth. "I'm heading there myself. Private jet, plenty of room. You're welcome to join me if you'd like to avoid the commercial flight delays." I stared at him. "That's very kind, but I don't even know your name." "Luca," he said, extending a hand. "Luca Vitelli." His handshake was firm, warm. Up close, I caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and subtle, with notes of cedar and bergamot. Everything about him screamed money and power, from his Italian leather shoes to the way he stood, utterly confident in his place in the world. "Sophia Reynolds." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "And while I appreciate the offer, I couldn't possibly accept a ride from a stranger." "Understandable." He withdrew his hand but didn't move away. "Though, technically, we're no longer strangers. We've been introduced." That almost smile appeared again. "And I promise you, my jet is significantly more comfortable than anything you'll find in coach. Plus, no crying babies." Despite everything, I felt a small laugh escape. "You make a compelling argument, Mr. Vitelli." "Luca," he corrected gently. "And I'm serious about the offer. I hate to see someone in distress when I have the means to help." His eyes held mine, and I saw something there beyond mere politeness, a genuine warmth that seemed at odds with his obvious wealth and power. No strings attached, just a ride to Chicago, and perhaps a chance to restore your faith that not all men are complete bastards. I should have said no. Every instinct I'd cultivated over 28 years of life screamed at me to decline politely and book my own ticket like a sensible person. But something about him. Maybe it was the kindness in those dark eyes. Maybe it was the fact that he'd called Ryan an idiot. Maybe it was simply that I was too emotionally raw to care about being sensible. Made me hesitate. "I don't want to impose," I heard myself say. "You won't be." He gestured toward the exit. "My car is waiting. The flight leaves in 40 minutes. If you change your mind, I'll have my driver take you back to the terminal. No questions asked." I looked down at my suitcase, at my carry-on with its coffee stain from this morning when everything had still been normal. I thought about Ryan boarding his first-class flight with Ashley, who understood his career aspirations. I thought about my empty apartment and the pitying looks I'd get from my coworkers when I had to explain what happened. "Okay," I said, the word feeling both reckless and liberating. "Thank you. I accept." Luca's smile widened, transforming his face entirely. "Excellent. I promise you won't regret it." As I followed him through the terminal, weaving between travelers and their rolling luggage, I wondered if that was true. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered that I'd just made either the best or worst decision of my life. I wouldn't know which until it was far too late to turn back. The black Mercedes waiting at the curb looked like it had been polished that morning. A driver in a crisp uniform emerged immediately, taking my suitcase with practiced efficiency before I could protest. He nodded respectfully to Luca, murmuring something in Italian too quick for me to catch. "This is Marco," Luca said as he held the door open for me. "He's been with my family for 20 years. You're in excellent hands." I slid into the leather interior, the seats so soft they felt like butter. The car smelled of expensive leather and that same subtle cologne Luca wore. Through the tinted windows, the airport looked different. Distant. Less real somehow. Luca settled beside me, maintaining a respectful distance but close enough that I caught the warmth radiating from him. Marco pulled smoothly into traffic, navigating the chaos of the departure lanes with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "So," Luca said, turning slightly toward me. "Philadelphia. What do you do there, Sophia?" "I'm an ER nurse at Jefferson." Saying it aloud made me acutely aware of the contrast between us. My scrubs and sensible shoes versus his tailored suit. My student loan debt versus his private jet. Trauma unit, mostly. It's intense, but I love it. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. "That's admirable work. Necessary work." He paused. "Your ex-boyfriend mentioned you took extra shifts to support him." The reminder of Ryan sent a fresh wave of humiliation through me. "Yes, well, that was clearly a mistake." "His mistake," Luca corrected quietly. "Not yours. Loyalty is a rare quality. He was a fool not to value it." I looked out the window, not trusting myself to respond without my voice breaking. We'd left the main terminal behind, heading toward a more remote section of the airport. Private hangars rose in the distance, sleek and modern. "May I ask what brings you to Chicago?" I managed after a moment. "Besides rescuing abandoned women at airports," he laughed, a low, genuine sound. "Business, mostly. My family has interests there, import-export operations, some real estate." He said it casually, as if everyone's family owned international businesses. I try to visit quarterly, check on things personally. The car slowed as we approached a security gate. Marco showed credentials to the guard, who waved us through without question. I caught a glimpse of the man's face, the way his expression shifted when he saw Luca, something that looked almost like fear beneath the professional courtesy. We pulled up beside a sleek white jet, its engines already humming. The Vitelli name was emblazoned on the tail in elegant script. A flight crew waited at the base of the stairs, 2 pilots and a flight attendant, all standing at attention like soldiers awaiting inspection. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Vitelli," the older pilot said, his accent distinctly Italian. His eyes flicked to me with barely concealed curiosity. "We're ready for immediate departure." "Excellent." Luca placed his hand at the small of my back, guiding me toward the stairs. The touch was light, impersonal, but I felt it like a brand through my sweater. "This is Ms. Reynolds. She'll be joining us." The flight attendant, a striking woman with her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, smiled at me, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course. Welcome, Ms. Reynolds. I'm Isabel. If you need anything during the flight, please don't hesitate to ask." The interior of the jet looked like something from a movie. Cream leather seats that could recline fully, glossy wood paneling, soft lighting that seemed to glow from everywhere and nowhere at once. A small conference table occupied the rear of the cabin, papers and a laptop already set up there as if Luca had been working before his trip to the airport. "Please, sit wherever you're comfortable," Luca said, gesturing to the seats. "We have about 90 minutes to Chicago. Would you like something to drink? Champagne, perhaps? Or coffee?" "Coffee would be wonderful." I chose a seat by the window, my fingers tracing the buttery leather. Everything here cost more than I'd make in a year, maybe several years. Isabel appeared moments later with coffee in a real porcelain cup. Not the paper kind from airport kiosks, but actual china with delicate gold edging. The coffee itself was perfect, rich and smooth without any bitterness. Luca settled across from me, his long legs stretched out, completely at ease in this world of casual luxury. "Tell me about your work," he said. "What made you choose emergency medicine?" As the jet taxied toward the runway, I found myself relaxing slightly. Luca was easy to talk to, asking intelligent questions and actually listening to my answers. He seemed genuinely interested in my stories from the ER, the saves, the losses, the dark humor that kept us all sane during the worst shifts. "You see people at their most vulnerable," he observed. "That must require a special kind of strength." "Or a special kind of crazy," I said, managing a small smile. "My mother thinks I should have gone into pediatrics. Something less intense." "But you thrive on the intensity." It wasn't a question. "You're someone who runs toward danger, not away from it." The observation unsettled me slightly because it was true. I'd always been drawn to the chaos of the trauma bay, the split-second decisions, the way time seemed to both slow and accelerate when someone's life hung in the balance. "What about you?" I asked, deflecting. "What's it like running an import-export business?" Something shifted in his expression, so subtle I almost missed it. "It's complicated. Family businesses always are. My father built the company from nothing when he immigrated from Sicily. Now my brother Enzo and I work to maintain his legacy and expand into new markets." "Is your father still involved?" "He oversees things from Chicago. Salvatore Vitelli doesn't believe in retirement." Luca's mouth quirked. "He'll probably die at his desk reviewing shipping manifests." The way he said his father's name carried a weight I couldn't quite identify. Respect, certainly, but also something else. Wariness, perhaps. My phone buzzed. I pulled it from my pocket to find a text from an unknown number. "I see you've upgraded your travel accommodations. Enjoy your flight with your new friend." Our ice flooded my veins. How did Ryan? I looked out the window instinctively, though we were already airborne. the ground falling away beneath us. "What is it?" Luca's voice sharpened. I showed him the message, my hand trembling slightly. He's watching me somehow. Or he was. But how would he even know about this? Luca's expression darkened as he read the text. He pulled out his own phone, typed something rapidly, then set it aside. "Don't respond. Don't engage with him at all." "He's probably just being petty," I said, but anxiety coiled in my stomach. "Trying to make me feel like I can't move on or something." "Perhaps." Luca didn't look convinced. "Or perhaps he's more interested in who you're traveling with than in you." The comment struck me as odd. "What do you mean?" He seemed to choose his words carefully. "My family is well known in certain circles. It's possible he recognized the name, did some quick research." He paused. "The Vitelli name carries weight." "Weight?" I repeated. "Influence. Connections." He held my gaze. "Sophia, I want to be honest with you. My family's businesses aren't always conventional. We operate in gray areas sometimes. I tell you this because if your ex-boyfriend is the type to use information as leverage, you should know what you might be stepping into by accepting my help." I should have been alarmed, should have demanded to be let off at the nearest airport. Instead, I found myself studying Luca's face, looking for signs of deception or threat. I saw only a kind of weary honesty. "Are you in the Mafia?" The question came out more blunt than I intended. He didn't laugh or deflect. "My family has history with certain organizations, yes. But I'm working to legitimize our operations, to move into legal territory entirely." He leaned forward slightly. "I won't lie to you and say we're completely clean, but I'm trying to change that." The plane hit a patch of turbulence, and I gripped my armrest. Luca's hand covered mine, steady and warm. "If you want," he said quietly, "I can have the pilots divert to Cleveland. You can catch a commercial flight from there, no harm done. I'd understand completely." I should have said yes, should have gotten as far from this beautiful, dangerous man as possible. But something in me, the same reckless thing that had made me follow him in the first place, refused. "No," I heard myself say. "I'm already here. And honestly, after the day I've had, the Mafia almost seems like a normal problem." His laugh surprised me, rich and genuine. "You're quite remarkable, Sophia Reynolds." The flight passed quickly. Luca worked on his laptop while I pretended to read a magazine, though I was really watching him. The way his brow furrowed when he concentrated. The occasional Italian curse under his breath when something displeased him. The unconscious gesture of running his hand through his hair when he was thinking. We landed at a private airstrip outside Chicago as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Another car waited, this one a black Range Rover with windows tinted so dark they looked like voids. "I've arranged for you to stay at the Sinclair," Luca said as we descended the stairs. The evening air was cooler than Philadelphia, carrying the scent of approaching rain. "It's one of our properties. You'll be comfortable there, and it's secure." "Luca, I can't accept—" "You can, and you will." His tone brooked no argument. "Consider it an apology on behalf of all the men who don't appreciate the remarkable women in their lives." A different driver held the door this time, a younger man with cold eyes and a barely concealed bulge under his jacket that I recognized from the ER. A gun. He nodded to Luca with something approaching reverence. "This is Dante," Luca introduced. "He'll be available if you need anything during your stay. Transportation, recommendations, whatever you require." As we drove into the city, Chicago rose around us like a forest of glass and steel. The streets were crowded with evening traffic, pedestrians hurrying home from work, the normal rhythm of urban life. But beside me, Luca was texting rapidly, his expression growing progressively darker. "Is everything all right?" I ventured. He looked up, and for a moment I saw something in his face that sent ice through my veins. Pure, cold fury before it was masked again behind a pleasant smile. "Fine," he said. "Just some unexpected business to attend to." His phone rang, and he answered in rapid Italian, his voice clipped and hard. When he hung up, he turned to me. "Sophia, I apologize, but I need to make a stop before taking you to the hotel. It won't take long." The car had already changed direction, heading toward a more industrial part of the city. The buildings here were older, grimier. Fewer streetlights meant pools of shadow gathered in alleyways. We pulled up in front of a warehouse, its windows dark. Several other cars were already parked outside, expensive vehicles that looked out of place in this neighborhood. "I'll just be a few minutes," Luca said, but his hand lingered on mine. "Stay in the car. Dante will keep you safe." Before I could respond, he was gone, disappearing into the warehouse with two other men who'd emerged from the shadows. The door closed behind them with a hollow boom. Dante remained in the driver's seat, his eyes constantly scanning our surroundings. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant sound of traffic and my own rapid heartbeat. Then I heard it, a muffled shout from inside the warehouse, the unmistakable crack of a gunshot. I grabbed for the door handle, but Dante's voice stopped me cold. "Don't, Ms. Reynolds. Whatever happens in there, you don't want to see it." Through the warehouse windows, I caught a glimpse of movement. Figures silhouetted against harsh fluorescent lighting. Luca's distinct profile, his arm raised. Another shot. Then silence. When Luca emerged 15 minutes later, his suit was still immaculate, his expression calm. But there was something dark on his hands that he wiped away with a cloth Dante handed him as he slid back into the car. "I'm sorry for the delay," he said pleasantly, as if we'd just stopped for coffee. "Shall we continue to the hotel?" I stared at him, at this man who'd been kind and charming, and who had just walked out of a building where someone had been shot. "What did I just witness?" I whispered. Luca's dark eyes met mine, and in them I saw the truth I'd been avoiding. This wasn't a businessman with Mafia connections. This was something much more dangerous. "The beginning," he said softly, "of you understanding exactly what world you've entered, Sophia." The car pulled back into traffic, carrying me deeper into a reality I was only beginning to comprehend, one where private jets and murder existed side by side, where a kind smile could hide lethal intent, and where I, Elena Sophia Reynolds, Philadelphia ER nurse, had somehow become entangled with forces I'd only ever seen on television. Ryan's text suddenly made terrible sense. He hadn't been petty or jealous. He'd been warning me. The Sinclair Hotel occupied the top 15 floors of a glass tower in downtown Chicago. The lobby was all marble and modern art, with a fountain trickling in the center and staff who moved like choreographed dancers. A concierge appeared the moment we entered, greeting Luca by name with a deference that went beyond professional courtesy. "Mr. Vitelli, welcome back. Your usual suite is prepared." "Thank you, Richard. But tonight Ms. Reynolds will be our guest. Please give her the Lakeview suite and ensure she has everything she needs." Richard's gaze flicked to me, and I saw him taking in my rumpled sweater, my airport tousled hair, my obvious emotional exhaustion. Whatever conclusions he drew, he kept them hidden behind a professional smile. "Of course, sir. Ms. Reynolds, if you'll follow me." I looked at Luca, who had stepped slightly away to take a phone call, his voice low and terse. Blood, or what I desperately hoped was something else, had left a faint smudge on his collar, despite his attempts to clean himself. The contrast between his elegant appearance and what I'd witnessed at the warehouse made my stomach turn. When he finished his call, Luca turned back to me. "I need to attend to some matters tonight, but I'll check on you tomorrow. Please, order anything you'd like from room service. It's taken care of. Luca." I kept my voice low, conscious of Richard waiting discreetly nearby. "What happened back there?" His expression softened. Nothing for you to worry about. A business dispute that required immediate resolution. Someone was shot. Yes. He didn't deny it, didn't try to soften the reality. Someone who represented a threat to my family and our interests. It's handled now. The casual way he discussed violence should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange numbness settling over me. The same emotional distance I'd learned to cultivate in the ER, when facing horrors no training could prepare you for. I should leave, I said. Go back to Philadelphia. You could. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. But your ex-boyfriend knows you're here. He's clearly monitoring your movements somehow, which suggests he has resources or connections I'd like to understand better. Until I know what his interest is, you're safer under my protection. Protection from what? That's what I intend to find out. He glanced at Richard, then back at me. Stay tonight. Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning when you've had time to process everything. He paused. And Sophia? I am sorry you witnessed that. It wasn't meant for your eyes. Before I could respond, he was gone, striding back through the lobby with that same fluid confidence, phone already pressed to his ear. Richard cleared his throat delicately. Ms. Reynolds, shall I show you to your suite? The Lakeview Suite lived up to its name. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Lake Michigan, its dark waters reflecting the city lights like scattered stars. The space was larger than my entire apartment, a bedroom with a king-sized bed, a living area with a leather sofa and gas fireplace, a bathroom with a soaking tub that could fit 3 people. The minibar is complimentary, Richard informed me, as is anything from room service. If you need fresh clothes, we have a boutique on the 6th floor that can be opened at your request. Simply call the concierge. After he left, I stood at the window, watching the city pulse below. Somewhere out there, Luca was attending to business matters that probably involved more violence, and I was here, in a luxury hotel suite I could never afford, protected by a man I barely knew who just orchestrated or committed murder in front of me. My phone buzzed. Ryan again. Interesting choice of traveling companion. Does he know about your grandfather? About what Antonio Reynolds really did before he died? I stared at the message, my blood running cold. My grandfather had died when I was 15, a quiet man who'd owned a small import business in South Philadelphia. He'd been retired for years by then, spending his days in his garden and arguing about baseball with his neighbors. What could Ryan possibly mean? I started to type a response, then remembered Luca's warning. Don't engage. Instead, I called the one person who might have answers. My mother picked up on the 3rd ring. Sophia? Is everything all right? You sound strange. Mom, what did Nono do exactly? Before he retired? A long pause. Why are you asking about this now? Please, it's important. I heard her sigh, the sound carrying decades of weight. Your grandfather worked in import-export, you know that. Mediterranean goods mainly. Olive oil, wine, that sort of thing. And another pause. Sophia, your grandfather came from the old country, from Sicily. Things were different then. The way business was conducted, the people you had to work with to get things done. Was he involved with the Mafia, Mom? The silence on the other end told me everything. We don't use that word, she said finally, her voice tight. Your grandfather was a legitimate businessman who happened to have connections from the old country. That's all. When he retired, he left all of that behind. But he had records, documents. How do you... She stopped herself. Who have you been talking to? What's going on, Sophia? I looked out at the glittering city, at the wealth and power and violence that had swallowed me in less than 12 hours. I think I might be in trouble, Mom. Where are you? Chicago. I came here with someone I met. Someone who might have connections similar to Nono's. My mother made a sound somewhere between a groan and a prayer. Santo cielo, Sofia. Your grandfather kept files, yes. Records of transactions of people he worked with. He said they were insurance, in case anyone ever tried to come after the family. After he died, I put them in a safe deposit box. I never looked at them, never wanted to know. Where's the box? First National Bank on Passyunk Avenue. Why? Sophia, what have you gotten yourself into? I didn't have an answer for her. After promising to call tomorrow, I hung up and stared at my phone. Ryan's message glowed on the screen, its implications becoming clearer. He knew about my grandfather's past. Somehow he'd discovered information that even I hadn't known. And now, he was using it to... What? Warn me? Threaten me? Or did he want something from those files? I needed to think. Needed to shower away the grime of this impossible day and try to make sense of everything. But first, I pulled up my phone's browser and typed, Vitelli Family Chicago. The results were carefully curated, legitimate business holdings, charitable donations, society page photos of the Vitelli patriarch Salvatore and his 2 sons at various functions. But buried in the search results was an old news article from 15 years ago. Alleged organized crime figure Salvatore Vitelli acquitted in RICO case. I skimmed the article, my unease growing. Federal prosecutors had tried to prove the Vitelli import-export business was a front for money laundering, drug trafficking, and extortion. The case had fallen apart when key witnesses recanted or disappeared. The defense had painted Salvatore as a successful immigrant businessman being persecuted for his ethnicity. Further searching revealed more breadcrumbs, a pattern of violence surrounding anyone who crossed the Vitelli family, of businesses that flourished or failed based on their relationship with the organization, of judges and politicians who seemed unusually sympathetic to Vitelli interests. And there was Luca, younger in the photos, standing slightly behind his father at various events, always impeccably dressed, always with that same calm expression. The articles mentioned his degree from Wharton, his work modernizing the family's legitimate holdings. They called him the respectable face of the Vitelli empire. They didn't mention that he apparently had no problem executing someone in a warehouse. The shower was too hot, but I needed it. Needed to feel clean, to wash away the day's accumulated trauma. I stood under the spray until my skin turned pink and the bathroom filled with steam. When I emerged, wrapped in the hotel's plush robe, I found that someone had been in the suite. My suitcase had been brought up and unpacked, my clothes hanging in the closet. On the bed lay a garment bag and a note in elegant script. For tomorrow, should you need it. L. Inside the bag was a dress, Armani, if the label was to be believed, in a deep emerald that would complement my complexion perfectly. Beside it, shoes that were exactly my size. I should have been charmed by the gesture. Instead, it felt like another demonstration of how thoroughly Luca controlled this situation. He knew my size, had known it even before bringing me here, which meant he'd been planning to dress me, to keep me, from the moment he'd offered that ride at the airport. The room service menu offered everything from caviar to Chicago deep dish pizza. I ordered soup and bread, my appetite gone, but knowing I needed to eat something. When it arrived, brought by a server who moved with military precision and called me Ms. Reynolds like he'd been briefed on my presence. I forced myself to consume it mechanically while staring out at the lake. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Ryan, but an unknown number. Your grandfather Antonio worked with Salvatore Vitelli 40 years ago. The records he kept could destroy both families, or make someone very rich. Your ex-boyfriend works for the Morettis now. They want those files. So does Luca. You're a pawn in a game you don't understand. Get out while you can. A friend I stared at the message, my hands trembling. The Morettis. Another name from my cursory research. Rivals to the Vitellis, locked in a decades-long struggle for control of Chicago's criminal enterprises. Ryan worked for them. That's how he'd known where I was, who I was with. And somehow, he'd discovered that my dead grandfather's insurance files, records I'd never known existed, were valuable enough to spark a war between crime families. A war I'd stumbled into because I'd accepted a ride on a private jet. The knock at my door made me jump. I crept to the peephole, expecting hotel staff or perhaps Dante. Instead, I saw a woman I'd never met. Elegant, around 40, with dark hair and a Chanel suit. She smiled at the door as if she knew I was watching. "Ms. Reynolds," she called softly. "My name is Francesca Vitelli, Luca's aunt. I believe we need to talk about your grandfather and the rather precarious position you found yourself in." I opened the door because I was tired of being in the dark, tired of cryptic messages and half-truths. If this woman had answers, I needed to hear them. Francesca entered with the bearing of someone accustomed to luxury, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She took in the suite with a knowing smile. "Luca certainly knows how to make an impression," she observed. She settled onto the sofa, crossing her legs. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." I remained standing, my arms crossed defensively. "How did you know I was here?" "Darling, I know everything that happens in properties my family owns." She opened her clutch, withdrawing a slim file. "And I know about these. The documents your grandfather kept as insurance. Records of transactions, names, dates, evidence of crimes that could bring down both our organization and the Morettis if they ever saw daylight. I don't have them. No, but you can access them. And that makes you incredibly valuable." Her smile was sharp. "It also makes you incredibly dangerous. To everyone. I should leave. Go back to Philadelphia tonight." "You could try." Francesca's expression hardened. "But Ryan Mitchell, yes, we know his name, has already reported your presence here to Victor Moretti. They're watching your mother's house as we speak. They'll watch the bank where those files are stored. If you try to retrieve them, you'll be intercepted. If you try to run, they'll grab you and force you to get the files for them." Horror washed through me. "My mother is under our protection now, though she doesn't know it." Luca anticipated this development. Francesca leaned forward. "My nephew brought you into this world for a reason, Ms. Reynolds. Not because he was being charitable at an airport, but because he recognized your name. He's been looking for Antonio Reynolds' granddaughter for 3 months, ever since we learned the Morettis were also searching for those documents. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. He knew, from the beginning. He knew who you were, yes, but the manner of your meeting was genuine coincidence, a fortunate one for him." She softened slightly. "And for what it's worth, I believe his attraction to you is real. Luca doesn't normally involve himself personally in business matters." "What does he want from me?" "The files, obviously." Francesca stood, smoothing her skirt. "But more than that, he wants you safe. The problem is that safe means different things to different people. For Luca, it means keeping you here, under his protection, until this situation is resolved. For you." She paused. "I imagine safe means getting as far from this mess as possible." "Can you help me do that?" She studied me for a long moment. "I could, but I won't. Because despite what you might think right now, my nephew is your best option for survival. The Morettis will kill you once they have the files. Luca will keep you alive." "In exchange for what?" Francesca's smile returned, sad this time. "That's between you and him. But I'd suggest cooperation, Ms. Reynolds. The alternative is far worse than you can imagine." After she left, I stood at the window again, watching the city lights blur through tears of frustration and fear. 24 hours ago, my biggest problem had been a cheating boyfriend. Now I was caught between crime families, my life depending on files I'd never known existed, protected by a man who'd orchestrated our entire meeting. The dress hanging in my closet suddenly felt like a costume. Tomorrow, I'd wear it and play the part Luca had assigned me, because what choice did I have? But as I finally crawled into the enormous bed, my phone clutched in my hand like a talisman, I made myself a promise. I would survive this. And when it was over, Luca Vitelli would learn that Sophia Reynolds was nobody's pawn. She was a trauma nurse. She ran toward danger for a living, and she'd been underestimated before. Morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd barely slept, my mind replaying Francesca's revelations until they'd worn grooves in my consciousness. The emerald dress hung in the closet like a question I wasn't ready to answer. Room service delivered breakfast unasked, perfectly poached eggs, fresh fruit, coffee that tasted like liquid gold. A note accompanied it. Meeting at 10 a.m. Luca will collect you. I ate mechanically, watching the city wake below. Joggers appeared along the lakefront path. Traffic thickened on Lakeshore Drive. Normal people living normal lives, blissfully unaware of the criminal underworld operating in parallel to their reality. At 9:45, I forced myself into the emerald dress. It fit perfectly, of course, skimming my curves in a way that was sophisticated rather than provocative. The shoes transformed my walk, adding height and a confidence I didn't feel. I stared at my reflection, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Luca arrived at precisely 10 a.m. He wore a different suit today, navy this time, with a crisp white shirt that made his olive skin seem to glow. His eyes widened slightly when he saw me. "You look." He paused, seeming to search for words. "Stunning." "Your aunt has good taste." I kept my voice neutral, professional. "Or did you pick this out yourself?" Something flickered in his expression. Guilt, perhaps. "I may have provided some guidance." He stepped into the suite, closing the door behind him. "Sophia, about yesterday. You knew who I was, from the beginning." I crossed my arms. "At the airport, when you so generously offered me a ride, you'd already been looking for me." He didn't deny it. "Yes. I'd been trying to locate you for months. The airport meeting was coincidence, a fortunate one for me. But I won't pretend I wouldn't have eventually found you anyway." "And the kindness? The concern about Ryan? That was all manipulation?" "No." He moved closer, his voice earnest. "That was real. I did think he was an idiot. I did want to help you. The fact that it also served my interests doesn't negate that." I laughed bitterly. "You should hear yourself. It served my interests. I'm not a business deal, Luca." "I know that." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Sophia, please, let me explain everything." "Your aunt already did. My grandfather worked with your father 40 years ago. He kept insurance files that both your family and the Morettis want. Ryan works for your enemies and has been using me to get access to those files. Did I miss anything? The part where I intend to protect you." His jaw tightened. "And the part where those files contain evidence that could destroy both our families. Your grandfather documented everything. Murders, bribes, names of people who should have stayed buried. If the Morettis get them, they'll use them to bring down my family and consolidate their power. Dozens of people will die. And if your family gets them, we destroy them, burn every page, every backup, eliminate the threat entirely." He paused. "Your grandfather was a smart man, Sophia. He understood that true insurance meant mutually assured destruction. Those files implicate the Morettis as much as us. Neither family can allow them to exist. So you need me to retrieve them?" "Yes, from the safe deposit box at First National Bank." He pulled out his phone, showing me surveillance photos of the bank. "The Morettis are watching it. They've had teams in place since yesterday. We can't approach without triggering a confrontation." "Then how?" "You walk in, retrieve the files, walk out." He swiped to another image. A man in his late 50s with cold eyes and a boxer's build. "This is Victor Moretti. He'll approach you, probably outside the bank. He'll be polite at first. Try to convince you to hand over the files voluntarily. And when I refuse?" "You won't refuse. You'll let him take them." At my shocked expression, Luca smiled grimly. "The files you'll carry will be forgeries. Good enough to fool a quick inspection, but ultimately worthless. By the time Victor realizes, we'll have the real documents safely secured." I shook my head, trying to process this. "You want me to willingly hand over fake evidence to a mob boss? I want you to play a role that keeps you alive." His hand found mine again, and this time I didn't pull away. "Sophia, I know I've manipulated you. I know I've put you in danger. But I'm also the only thing standing between you and Victor Moretti, who would have no qualms about torturing information out of you if he thought it would help." The casual mention of torture should have terrified me. Instead, I felt that same clinical detachment I'd mastered in the ER, assess the situation, identify the threat, take action. "What's the real plan?" I asked. "Because I don't believe you're just going to destroy those files. They're too valuable." Luca studied me, and I saw respect flicker in his dark eyes. "You're right. We'll keep them as leverage against the Morettis, and as insurance against anyone in our own organization who might get ambitious. Like your brother Enzo?" His expression hardened. "You've done your research. Your aunt mentioned him briefly, said he's more traditional, less interested in legitimizing the family business. Enzo believes our father is getting soft, that I'm too focused on legal operations." Luca moved to the window, his back to me. "He's been making alliances with other families, positioning himself to take control. The Antonio Reynolds files would give him leverage he doesn't deserve. So I'm caught in a war between 3 different factions. The Morettis, your family, and your brother's ambitions." "Yes." He turned back to face me. "Which is why you need to trust me, Sophia. I can navigate these waters. I can keep you safe." "In exchange for what? My cooperation? My silence?" "Your partnership." The word hung between us, weighted with implications I wasn't ready to examine. "I need someone I can trust completely. Someone outside the family politics. Someone who understands what's at stake." "You barely know me. I know you run toward danger instead of away from it. I know you're loyal even when it costs you. I know you're smart enough to see through my manipulation, but pragmatic enough to understand why I did it." He stepped closer. "And I know that despite everything, you haven't run. You're still here." Because I have nowhere else to go, I thought. But I didn't say it aloud. "When do we do this?" I asked instead. "Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. The bank opens at 9, so there will be enough people around that Victor won't risk violence in public." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Your identification for the safe deposit box. Your mother had it couriered overnight." I stared at the envelope, a new wave of anger washing through me. "You contacted my mother?" "Francesca did. Explained that you were in danger and needed access to your grandfather's estate documents." His expression softened. "Your mother is frightened for you, Sophia. But she's also proud. She said you were always the brave one." The mention of my mother, her fear, her pride, cracked something in my carefully maintained composure. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I need air," I said abruptly. "I need to get out of this hotel room." "Of course." Luca checked his watch. "I have meetings this afternoon, but Dante can take you anywhere in the city you'd like to go." "Alone. I need to go alone." He hesitated, conflict playing across his face. "The Morettis will be watching the bank, not randomly following me around Chicago. You said so yourself." I met his gaze steadily. "I'm not a prisoner, Luca. If I'm going to be your partner, I need to make that clear right now. After a long moment, he nodded. Take my credit card. Buy whatever you need. Dante will drive you wherever you want, but he stays in the car. He withdrew a black Amex from his wallet. Please be careful. The gesture of trust, or the appearance of it, surprised me. I took the card, our fingers brushing. The contact sent an unwelcome warmth through me that I immediately suppressed. Dante drove me to Michigan Avenue, where gleaming storefronts promised transformation through material goods. I had him drop me at the corner of Oak Street and walked alone for the first time since arriving in Chicago. The normalcy was jarring. Tourists snapped photos. Business people hurried past, phones pressed to their ears. A street musician played saxophone, his case open for donations. Nobody looked at me with recognition or threat. I was just another woman in a nice dress, blending into the urban landscape. I ended up in a coffee shop, ordering a latte and claiming a corner table where I could watch the street. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Luca checking in, from Dante confirming my location, from my mother asking if I was okay, and one from Ryan. Tomorrow at the bank. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. So he knew the plan, or thought he did, which meant Victor Moretti knew, which meant this was a trap within a trap. Everyone maneuvering for advantage while I stood in the middle wondering which direction would get me killed. Mind if I sit? The voice was familiar. Not Luca's smooth baritone, but something rougher, tinged with a New York accent. I looked up to find a man in his 30s, handsome in a weathered way, with sandy hair and green eyes. He wore jeans and a leather jacket, decidedly out of place among Michigan Avenue's designer shoppers. Do I know you? I asked carefully. Not yet. He slid into the chair across from me uninvited. But you knew my sister, Sarah Mitchell, Ryan's older sister. My blood went cold. I thought Sarah lived in California. She did, until 3 months ago, when she OD'd in a motel room in Oakland. His expression was hard, grief wrapped in anger. Heroin laced with fentanyl, the kind of stuff that's been flooding the streets since the Morettis took over distribution from the Vitellis. I didn't know what to say. Ryan had mentioned his sister occasionally, always vaguely, changing the subject when I asked questions. I'd assumed they were estranged. I'm sorry for your loss, I managed. Ryan thinks the Vitellis killed her. Some kind of message to the Morettis. He leaned forward, his voice low. He's wrong. I've been investigating for months. The shipment that killed Sarah came through Moretti channels, but the orders came from inside the Vitelli organization. What are you saying? I'm saying Enzo Vitelli is running his own operation behind his father's back, importing fentanyl through Moretti territory, letting them take the risk in the heat while he collects the profit. He's been playing both families against each other, and Sarah was collateral damage. The revelation hit like a sledgehammer. Why are you telling me this? Because Ryan is using you to get to those files. He thinks they'll prove the Vitellis killed our sister. He's planning to hand them to the FBI once he gets copies. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo. Ryan meeting with a man in a suit I didn't recognize. That's Special Agent Marcus Wade, Organized Crime Task Force. Ryan's been working with them for 2 months. My mind reeled. Ryan wasn't working for the Morettis. He was working with federal agents, trying to bring down both crime families as revenge for his sister's death. And you? I asked. What do you want? Same thing as Ryan, but I'm not stupid enough to trust the FBI. Those files disappear into evidence, and the agents who touch them start dying mysteriously. The only way to really bring these families down is to make everything public. Leak the documents to every major newspaper, post them online, make them impossible to suppress. That would destroy dozens of lives. Good. His eyes blazed with cold fury. These people are murderers, Ms. Reynolds. They destroy lives every day. Sarah was 27. She had a daughter. My niece is growing up without a mother because some mobster decided profit mattered more than human lives. I understood his pain, his rage. I'd seen it countless times in the ER. Family members learning their loved one hadn't survived. That senseless violence had stolen someone irreplaceable. But I also understood that the Antonio Reynolds files contained 40 years of names and crimes. Innocent people would be caught in the blast radius if those documents went public. "I can't help you," I said quietly. "Can't or won't." He stood, looking down at me with something like pity. "Luca Vitelli is charming, I'm sure. Good at making you feel protected. But he's just another monster in an expensive suit. Don't forget that when he asks you to compromise your principles." After he left, I sat for a long time, my coffee going cold. The web was more complex than I'd understood. Ryan working with the FBI. Enzo Vitelli running independent operations. Victor Moretti caught between two Vitelli brothers' ambitions. And me, holding the key to files that everyone wanted for different reasons. My phone buzzed. "Luca. Where are you?" Dante lost visual. I looked around the coffee shop and spotted the surveillance. A man in a business suit at the counter who'd been reading the same newspaper for 20 minutes. One of Luca's people, presumably. Or perhaps Victor's. Or maybe even FBI watching their witness Ryan's ex-girlfriend. I texted back. Michigan Avenue. Getting coffee. Needed to think. His response was immediate. "Come back to the hotel. We need to talk." But I wasn't ready to return to my gilded cage. Instead, I walked, letting my feet carry me north along the lake. The water stretched gray and endless, whitecaps visible in the distance. Sailboats dotted the horizon, their occupants blissfully unaware of the criminal machinations unfolding in the city behind them. Eventually, I found myself at Navy Pier, the tourist destination crowded with families and couples. I bought a ticket for the Ferris wheel on impulse, wanting to see the city from above, to gain perspective on my impossible situation. As the wheel carried me upward, Chicago spread out below like a glittering promise. So many lives intersecting, so many stories playing out simultaneously. Down there, Luca was managing his criminal empire. Victor Moretti was planning his next move. Enzo Vitelli was building his secret kingdom. Ryan was collaborating with federal agents. And my mother was home in Philadelphia, terrified for her daughter. My phone rang as I reached the top of the wheel. Unknown number. "Sophia Reynolds?" A woman's voice, professional and clipped. "Yes?" "This is Special Agent Marcus Wade's assistant. He'd like to meet with you this evening. 6 p.m. at Millennium Park, near the Bean. Come alone." "I don't think..." "Ryan will be there. He says there are things you need to know about Luca Vitelli. Things that might change your mind about whose side you're on." The line went dead. I stared at my phone as the Ferris wheel completed its rotation and began descending. Everyone wanted something from me. Everyone had their own version of the truth, their own justification for the violence they were willing to commit. But maybe Ryan, for all his faults, could give me information without the filter of criminal self-interest. Maybe the FBI could actually protect me better than Luca's armed guards in luxury hotels. Or maybe this was exactly the kind of thinking that got people killed. When I returned to the Sinclair, Luca was waiting in my suite. He stood by the window, his posture tense, and turned immediately when I entered. "You were gone for 3 hours." His voice was controlled, but I heard the undercurrent of worry. "Dante said a man approached you in the coffee shop?" "Ryan's brother. He told me about Sarah, about Enzo." I set down the shopping bags I'd accumulated, clothes I didn't need, purchased with Luca's money as if I could buy my way into normalcy. "Is it true? Is your brother running fentanyl through Moretti territory?" Luca's jaw tightened. "Where did you hear that?" "Is it true?" For a long moment he said nothing. Then, "Yes. My father and I discovered it 2 weeks ago. Enzo has been building his own empire behind our backs, using our connections but keeping the profits. The Antonio Reynolds files would give him leverage to push my father aside and take control completely, and Sarah Mitchell was one of dozens who died from Enzo's product. He moved toward me, his expression anguished. Sophia. I didn't know about her until after she died. If I had, I would have stopped it. I would have... He broke off, running a hand through his hair. This is why I need those files, to stop Enzo before more people die. The FBI wants to meet with me, tonight. I watched his reaction carefully. His expression went dangerously cold. Absolutely not. Ryan will be there. Ryan is working with federal agents to build a case against my family. If you meet with them, you become part of that investigation. They'll use you, Sophia. Make promises they can't keep, then leave you exposed when things go wrong. As opposed to you using me? I've never lied about what I'm asking you to do. He stepped closer, his voice intense. Yes, I need those files. Yes, I brought you into this for my own purposes. But I also care about keeping you alive. Which is more than I can say for federal agents who'll sacrifice you the moment it's convenient. I'm going to the meeting. Then I'm coming with you. That defeats the purpose. I don't care. His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. You don't understand how dangerous this game is, Sophia. One wrong move and you're dead. I won't let that happen. The intensity in his eyes, the genuine fear beneath his controlled exterior, made my breath catch. This wasn't manipulation or strategy. This was real emotion from a man who'd probably spent years training himself not to feel anything. I need the truth, I whispered. All of it. Not your version or Ryan's version or your brother's version. I need to know what I'm really choosing. Then I'll give it to you. He lowered his hand, but didn't step back. But not here. Too many ears, too many cameras. Come with me tonight after your meeting. Let me show you something that will help you understand. Understand what? Why some of us choose to live in the darkness. His smile was sad. And why, despite everything, I'm trying to find my way back to the light. The bean, officially Cloudgate, reflected the evening sky and its polished surface, turning sunset into abstract art. Tourists posed for photos beneath the sculpture while I stood at its edge, watching for Ryan among the crowd. Luca had insisted on coming despite my protests, positioning himself with Dante on a bench 50 yards away. Close enough to intervene if things went wrong, far enough to maintain the illusion of privacy. I'd agreed to the compromise because arguing seemed pointless when he had a dozen other people watching me anyway. Ryan appeared at 6:05 looking haggard. The confident businessman from the airport had been replaced by someone hunted, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd. He wore a baseball cap and sunglasses despite the fading light. Sophia. He stopped a few feet away, maintaining distance. Thank you for coming. Your brother found me this afternoon, told me about Sarah. I kept my voice neutral, professional. I'm sorry for your loss. Are you? His laugh was bitter. You're sleeping in Vitelli's hotel, wearing clothes he bought you. Seems like you've moved on pretty quickly from our relationship. You dumped me at an airport, Ryan. What I do now is none of your business. He had the grace to look ashamed. You're right. I'm sorry about that. About all of it. He glanced around nervously. Is he here? Vitelli? Nearby, but this conversation is between us. For now. Ryan moved closer, his voice dropping. Sophia, listen to me. I know you think Luca is protecting you, but he's not. He's controlling you, making you dependent on him so you'll do what he wants. And you're different. You tracked me to Chicago. You've been monitoring my movements. You knew I went to his hotel. Because I'm trying to save your life. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo. Luca in what looked like the warehouse from 2 nights ago, gun in hand, standing over a body. This is who you're trusting. This is the man you think will keep you safe. The image should have shocked me. Instead, I felt only a weary acknowledgement of what I'd already known. I saw him shoot someone the night we arrived. I know what he is. And you're still with him? I'm still alive. That counts for something. I crossed my arms. What do you want, Ryan? Why did the FBI arrange this meeting? Because we need your help. He pocketed his phone. The files your grandfather kept are the key to dismantling both crime families. But we need the real documents, not the forgeries Vitelli is planning to give the Morettis. How do you know about? We have someone inside the Vitelli organization, a source who's been feeding us information for months. He paused. Sophia, tomorrow when you go to that bank, federal agents will be waiting. We'll secure the real files, and you'll be placed in protective custody. You'll testify against both families, and in exchange, you'll get immunity and a new identity. Witness protection. Yes. A chance to start over, away from all of this. It sounded appealing in its simplicity. Walk away from Luca, from the Morettis, from the entire nightmare. Let the FBI handle the criminals while I disappeared into suburban anonymity somewhere in Middle America. Except nothing in this world was simple. Your source, I said slowly. It's not Enzo, is it? Ryan's expression confirmed my suspicion before he could verbalize it. He approached us 6 months ago, said he wanted immunity in exchange for information about his father's operations and the Moretti organization. And you believed him. We verified everything he's given us. It's all checked out. Because he wants you to believe him. I shook my head, pieces clicking into place. Enzo is playing you, Ryan. He doesn't want to bring down the families. He wants to eliminate his competition. His father, his brother, the Morettis. So he can take over completely. You don't know that. I know that men like Enzo don't cooperate with federal agents out of the goodness of their hearts. Whatever he's told you, whatever evidence he's provided, it serves his purposes. I stepped closer. Think about it. If the FBI arrests Salvatore and Luca Vitelli based on those files, who takes control of the organization? Doubt flickered in Ryan's eyes. Agent Wade has been monitoring. Agent Wade is getting exactly what Enzo wants him to see. I felt the certainty settling over me. The Antonio Reynolds files document crimes from both families. If they go public or into FBI evidence, both organizations collapse. The Morettis lose their leadership, the Vitellis face RICO charges, and Enzo steps into the power vacuum as the only major player still standing. That's a pretty elaborate theory. It's exactly what I'd do if I wanted to seize control of a criminal empire. I pulled out my own phone, showing him the research I'd done that afternoon. Enzo has been consolidating power for years, buying loyalty from underbosses, making independent deals, building his own revenue streams. The Antonio Reynolds files are his nuclear option, the weapon that eliminates everyone in his way. Ryan stared at the information, his expression shifting from skepticism to dawning horror. If you're right, if Enzo is manipulating the investigation, then tomorrow at the bank, you'll be arresting the wrong people while the real threat walks away clean. A man in a suit appeared from the crowd. Tall, 50s, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. Agent Wade, presumably. He looked between Ryan and me with evident frustration. Ms. Reynolds, he said, extending a badge. Special Agent Marcus Wade, I need you to come with us for your own protection. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but interfering with a federal investigation. She's not interfering. Luca's voice cut through the tension as he appeared beside me, Dante flanking him. She's exercising her right to legal counsel before discussing anything with federal agents. I'm sure you understand, Agent Wade. Wade's expression hardened. Mr. Vitelli, should have known you'd be nearby. Ms. Reynolds is under my protection, Naturally, I take an interest in who she speaks with. Luca's hand found the small of my back, a gesture of possession that made Wade's jaw tighten. And naturally, I'm curious why the FBI is using my family's rival to manipulate a civilian into providing evidence. We're trying to save her life. By making her a target? Luca's voice was dangerous, soft. By association with your investigation, you've painted a crosshair on her back. Every criminal organization in Chicago now knows she has access to the Antonio Reynolds files. If anything happens to her, Agent Wade, that blood is on your hands. Wade turned to Ryan. You said she'd cooperate. I thought... Ryan looked at me, betrayal evident in his expression. Sophia, please. This is about Sarah. About justice for my sister. No, I said quietly. This is about revenge. And I understand that, Ryan. I do. But burning down 2 crime families won't bring Sarah back. It'll just kill more people and let Enzo Vitelli take over operations while pretending to be legitimate. You don't know that. Actually, a new voice said, she's absolutely right. We all turned to find Enzo Vitelli himself approaching, flanked by his own security detail. He looked like a more dangerous version of Luca. Same dark eyes, same expensive suit, but with a harder edge, a cruelty that his younger brother had learned to mask. Agent Wade, Enzo said pleasantly. I see you've met my brother's new girlfriend. Beautiful, isn't she? I can see why he's so eager to keep her close. Enzo, Luca's voice was arctic. What are you doing here? Protecting the family's interests, which apparently includes preventing Sophia from making a terrible mistake. Enzo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Ms. Reynolds, my brother has likely told you many things about me. Most of them are probably true. But what he hasn't told you is that those files you're so worried about, they implicate him just as much as anyone else. That's a lie, Luca said, but I caught the flicker of something in his expression. Not quite guilt, but close. Is it? Enzo pulled out his phone, showing me what appeared to be scanned pages from the Antonio Reynolds documents. Your grandfather kept meticulous records, Sophia, including details about a shipment that came through in 2019. Fentanyl smuggled in wine crates from Albania. My brother personally oversaw the distribution. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. I looked at Luca, searching his face for denial. Instead, I saw terrible confirmation. It was one shipment, he said quietly. Before I understood what it would do, before I knew. Before Sarah Mitchell and 50 other people died from the product you distributed, Enzo finished. But please, brother, tell Sophia how you're different from me, how you're trying to go legitimate while I'm the monster. Agent Wade stepped forward, hand moving toward his weapon. Enzo Vitelli, you're under arrest for... The shot came from somewhere in the crowd, the distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle. Agent Wade dropped, blood blooming across his chest. Chaos erupted, people screaming, running, Ryan diving for cover, Dante pulling a weapon as more shots rang out. Luca grabbed me, pulling me behind the bean's curved surface as bullets sparked off the polished metal. I caught a glimpse of Enzo's men returning fire, of Agent Wade lying motionless on the ground, of Ryan crawling toward him, trying to apply pressure to the wound. We need to move, Luca shouted over the gunfire. Now! But I was frozen, staring at Agent Wade's blood spreading across the concrete, at the pandemonium we'd unleashed. This was my fault. I'd refused to cooperate, had tried to play games with forces I didn't understand, and now people were dying. Sophia. Luca's voice cut through my paralysis. We have to go. He pulled me toward the street where the Range Rover was already racing to meet us. Dante provided covering fire as we ran, and I caught one last glimpse of Ryan, still crouched over Agent Wade, his hands red with blood. Then we were in the vehicle, tires squealing as we accelerated away from Millennium Park. Behind us, sirens wailed. The shooting had lasted maybe 30 seconds, but it felt like hours. Who was shooting? I managed, my voice shaking. Moretti's? Enzo's people? Both, probably. Luca was on his phone, barking orders in Italian. This was supposed to be a negotiation. Someone decided to turn it into a war. Agent Wade is likely dead. His voice was flat, emotionless. The mask was back in place, the dangerous criminal I'd glimpsed at the warehouse. Which means the FBI will come down on all of us with everything they have. We need those files now, tonight, before they freeze all the accounts and lock down every resource. I stared at him, really seeing him for the first time without the filter of attraction or fear. This was who Luca Vitelli truly was. A man who could watch a federal agent die and immediately start calculating his next move. Who had distributed the drugs that killed Sarah Mitchell and dozens of others, then convinced me he was trying to make things right. "You lied to me," I whispered. "I omitted truths." He didn't look at me, still focused on his phone. "There's a difference, not to me." He finally met my gaze, and I saw something in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, or the ghost of it. "I'm sorry you had to see that. Sorry you're caught in this. But we don't have time for moral debates right now. Victor Moretti just made his move, and if we don't respond immediately, we lose everything. Including me, especially you." His hand found mine, squeezing tightly. "Whatever you think of me right now, whatever I've done, know that I will keep you alive." "That's not a lie, Sophia. It's a promise." The Range Rover raced through Chicago's streets, carrying me deeper into a world where promises and threats were indistinguishable, where every choice led to violence, and where the only constant was that someone, somewhere, was always planning betrayal. Behind us, Millennium Park blazed with police lights, agents swarming the scene where one of their own had fallen. And ahead, in the darkness of whatever came next, waited the Antonio Reynolds files, the evidence that everyone was willing to kill for, that had already cost so many lives. The files that I, Elena Sophia Reynolds, Philadelphia ER nurse, was somehow supposed to retrieve tomorrow morning while avoiding FBI agents, Moretti soldiers, Enzo's assassins, and my own rapidly developing understanding that there were no good choices left. Only survival, and the terrible question of what I'd become by the time I achieved it. The Range Rover turned north, heading away from downtown toward one of Luca's properties in the suburbs. My phone buzzed, my mother calling, probably having seen news reports about the shooting. I declined it, unable to explain what was happening when I barely understood it myself. Beside me, Luca continued orchestrating his response to the evening's disaster. His world was burning, and he was calmly rearranging the pieces to survive the fire. I wondered if I'd learned to be the same way, or if the person I'd been, the nurse who saved lives, who believed in right and wrong, who thought she could navigate this nightmare with her principles intact, was already dead, killed somewhere between the airport and here by the accumulated weight of impossible choices. Tomorrow I would walk into First National Bank and retrieve files that had caused deaths, sparked wars between families, and corrupted federal investigations. Tonight, I would try to figure out which version of the truth to believe, and whether it even mattered anymore. The safe house was a converted warehouse in Pilsen, all exposed brick and industrial windows, the kind of space that appeared in design magazines under the heading Urban Chic. But the armed guards at every entrance and the steel-reinforced doors told a different story. Luca's father waited inside. Salvatore Vitelli was in his 70s, white-haired and stocky, with hands that looked like they'd built empires through sheer force of will. He sat in a leather armchair that resembled a throne, a glass of wine at his elbow, studying me with dark eyes that missed nothing. "So this is Antonio Reynolds' granddaughter." His English carried a heavier accent than Luca's. "You have his eyes. He was a smart man, your grandfather. Knew when to document, when to forget." "Mr. Vitelli," I managed, acutely aware of Luca beside me, tense and watchful. Sit. Salvatore gestured to a sofa. "We have much to discuss before tomorrow." He waited until we'd settled before continuing. My son tells me you understand the situation, the files, the FBI, my eldest son's ambitions. I understand that people are dying because of documents my grandfather wrote 40 years ago. People are always dying, Signorina. The question is whether their deaths mean something. He sipped his wine. Your grandfather understood this. When he kept those records, he knew they were weapons. Insurance against both families destroying each other in pointless war. Instead, they're destroying each other fighting over the insurance itself. A smile creased Salvatore's weathered face. Smart and blunt. I like you. He turned to Luca. You chose well. Papa, she's not, Luca began, but Salvatore waved him off. Your brother has made arrangements with Victor Moretti. They plan to ambush us at the bank tomorrow. Take the real files and eliminate anyone who knows about them, including Sophia. Ice flooded my veins. How do you know this? Because Enzo came to me this evening, told me everything. Salvatore's expression darkened. My own son, planning to kill his brother, his father, to take what he thinks should be his. He gave me a choice, step aside willingly or be removed. What did you say? I asked. I told him I would consider his proposal. He drained his wine. And then I called Luca and began making other arrangements. Luca's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening. Victor Moretti just sent confirmation. He expects us at the bank at 10 a.m., unarmed, to make the exchange. Enzo will be there as his insurance that we don't try anything. It's a trap, I said. Of course it's a trap. Salvatore leaned forward. Which is why you won't go to the bank, Sophia. You'll go to my private vault where the real Antonio Reynolds files are already waiting. I stared at him. What? Your mother sent 2 sets of documents. One to the hotel as expected, one to me directly. He smiled at my shocked expression. She and I spoke this morning. I explained the situation, and she agreed that the safest place for those files was with me. My mother would never. Your mother understands family, Signorina. She knew Antonio kept those records to protect both organizations from mutually assured destruction. She doesn't want to see Chicago burn any more than I do. Luca was already on his feet. Papa, if the files aren't at the bank, then Enzo and Victor will realize they've been played. They'll turn on each other, and in the chaos, we eliminate them both. Salvatore stood, slower than his son, age evident in the careful way he moved. Victor has been planning to betray Enzo anyway. He's old-school Moretti. He doesn't trust Vitelli's even when they're allies. Enzo knows this, which is why he's arranged for Victor to be killed during the exchange. How do you... I began, because Enzo has been sending me his plans for weeks, thinking I was cooperating. Salvatore's expression was bitter. My own son, so eager for power that he would sacrifice everything our family built. Everything your grandfather and I built together, Sophia. The revelation that my grandfather and Salvatore had been genuine partners, not just criminal associates, shifted something in my understanding. Whatever Antonio Reynolds had been, he'd believed in something beyond mere profit. Believed it enough to keep records that protected both families from destruction. What's your plan? Luca asked his father. Tomorrow I go to the bank with Dante and the others. I play the role Enzo expects, the old man, frightened and compliant. When Victor arrives, when he realizes the files are forgeries, Enzo will make his move to kill him, and I will make mine to eliminate them both. You're going to start a war in the middle of downtown Chicago, I said, horror rising. I'm going to end a war that's been brewing for 40 years. Salvatore turned to me. Your grandfather understood that sometimes violence is necessary to prevent greater violence. That's why he kept those records, not to bring us down, but to force us to maintain balance. And where do I fit in this? You retrieve the real files from my vault. You decide what happens to them. Salvatore's gaze was intense. Destroy them, and the balance is gone. Both families spiral into chaos, with Enzo and Victor fighting for dominance. Keep them secret, and they remain leverage, insurance that keeps everyone in check. Or I give them to what's left of the FBI and watch you all go to prison. You could try. No threat in his voice, just acknowledgement. But Agent Wade's death was recorded by security cameras. The footage shows Enzo's sniper firing from a building the Moretti's control. Both families can be connected to a federal agent's murder. If those files go public, if the FBI goes to war with us, hundreds of people die. Not just criminals, Signorina. Families. Children. The innocent people who live in neighborhoods we control. The moral calculation he was forcing on me, balance versus justice, pragmatic compromise versus idealistic destruction, made my head spin. This was beyond my training, beyond anything my life had prepared me for. I need air, I said, standing abruptly. Luca followed me to the warehouse's roof, where Chicago sprawled below us like a circuit board, lights flickering in patterns that suggested order while concealing the chaos beneath. He's manipulating you, Luca said quietly. My father is very good at that. Like father, like son. He didn't deny it. But he's also right about the consequences. If those files go public, if the FBI comes down on both families simultaneously, the power vacuum will be filled by someone worse. Maybe the Albanians, maybe the cartels. Enzo and Victor are evil, but they're local evil. They have roots here, families here. They want stability because chaos hurts their business. That's a pretty cynical worldview. It's a realistic one. He moved beside me, close enough that I felt his warmth. I know you want clear moral lines, Sophia. Good guys and bad guys. But the world doesn't work that way. Sometimes the best choice is the least horrible option. Your father is planning to commit murder tomorrow. Multiple murders, probably. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with survival. He turned to face me. Enzo has been poisoning our operations for years. The fentanyl I helped distribute? That was his innovation, his push for higher profits regardless of the body count. My father and I tried to stop it, but Enzo had already built alliances we couldn't break without triggering civil war. His hand found mine. Tomorrow that war happens, and when it's over, I can finally dismantle the parts of our empire that kill people like Sarah Mitchell. By killing your own brother. By stopping a monster. His voice was raw. You think I want this? Enzo is my brother. We grew up together. But he's become something I can't allow to exist. Below us, sirens wailed. Ambulances, police cars, the constant soundtrack of urban crisis. My world for the past 5 years, rushing toward emergencies, trying to save lives that forces like the Vitellis and Morettis casually destroyed. The real files, I said slowly. Where are they exactly? In my father's private vault. Only he and I know the location. Luca paused. And now you, if you agree to help us. Help you murder people. Help us end this cycle. He squeezed my hand. Sophia, I know what I'm asking. I know it goes against everything you believe. But tomorrow, one way or another, people are going to die. The question is whether their deaths lead to more chaos or to something better. I thought about Agent Wade, bleeding out on the concrete, about Sarah Mitchell and the dozens who'd overdosed on Enzo's product, about my grandfather Antonio, keeping meticulous records because he understood that information was the only weapon against entropy. Show me the vault, I said finally. The vault was in the sub-basement of a legitimate Vitelli property, an art gallery in River North. We descended through layers of security, past storage rooms filled with paintings worth millions, until we reached a steel door that required 3 separate biometric scans. Inside, the Antonio Reynolds file sat in an unassuming banker's box, 40 years of criminal history documented in my grandfather's precise handwriting. I opened the first folder. Names leaped out at me. Politicians, judges, businessmen, all detailed with dates and amounts. Murders documented with clinical precision. Money laundering schemes traced through legitimate businesses. The entire architecture of organized crime in Chicago, mapped across decades. "My God," I whispered. "This could bring down half the city's establishment, which is why it can never see daylight." Luca stood behind me. "That's the terrible logic of it, Sophia. These files are too powerful to use and too dangerous to destroy. So they just sit here forever? Insurance nobody can collect on? Until the world changes enough that they're irrelevant." He reached past me, pulling out a specific folder. "But this is what tomorrow is really about." The folder contained recent documents, not my grandfather's handwriting, Enzo's records of his independent operations, the fentanyl distribution, deals with the Morettis, and something else. A plan to eliminate Salvatore and Luca, take control of the Vitelli organization, and merge it with the Morettis under Enzo's leadership. "He's been planning this for 2 years, Luca said, building his own empire inside ours, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Antonio Reynolds files gave him that moment." I read through the documents, my horror growing. Enzo hadn't just distributed drugs. He deliberately targeted rehabilitation centers, knowing recovering addicts would be easier to hook. He'd paid doctors to prescribe painkillers that led to addiction. He'd built an entire infrastructure of death, all while presenting himself as the respectable face of the Vitelli family. "This is evidence," I said. "Real evidence of recent crimes. This could go to the FBI without bringing down the entire historical record. If there was still an FBI investigation." Luca's expression was grim. "But Agent Wade is dead. Ryan Mitchell will be discredited as a revenge-seeking accomplice, and Enzo has spent months corrupting the task force from the inside. Any evidence we provide will be dismissed as Vitelli family propaganda. Then what's the point of any of this? The point is ending Enzo's operation permanently." He took the folder from my hands. "Tomorrow, when my father confronts him, these documents ensure Enzo can't talk his way out, can't claim he was working with our approval. The evidence proves he went rogue, and that his death was family justice, not federal business." The casual way he discussed his brother's execution made my stomach turn. But I'd seen what Enzo's operation had wrought. The bodies in my ER, the overdoses that no amount of Narcan could reverse, the families destroyed by addiction that Enzo had deliberately engineered. "What happens after?" I asked. "After tomorrow? After Enzo and Victor are dead? Does anything actually change?" Luca was quiet for a long moment. "I want to believe it will. That I can steer the family toward legitimate business. Phase out the operations that cause real harm." He met my eyes. "But honestly, I don't know. My father is old. Soon I'll be in charge. And then I'll have to make the same impossible choices he's made for 50 years. Unless you walk away and let someone worse take over." He shook his head. "That's the trap, Sophia. The logic that keeps you locked in the darkness. You can't leave because leaving means abandoning everyone to something worse." I understood suddenly why he'd been drawn to me. Not just because I could access the files, but because I represented escape. A life outside the criminal empire, where choices were clear and morality wasn't a negotiation. "I can't be part of this," I said quietly. "Tomorrow, whatever happens at that bank, I can't be complicit in murder." "I know." He didn't try to change my mind. "Which is why you'll be here, in this vault, safe from everything. When it's over, I'll come for you. And then you'll decide." "Decide what?" "Whether I'm someone you can build a future with, or another monster you need to run from." The vulnerability in his voice surprised me. Luca Vitelli, crime lord, killer, manipulator, asking if I could love him despite knowing what he was. I don't know, I answered honestly. That's fair. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. But after tomorrow, after you've had time to process everything, I hope you'll give me a chance to find out. Morning came with pale sunlight filtering through the gallery's skylight. I'd spent the night on a cot in the vault's antechamber, unable to sleep, replaying every choice that had led me here. At 9:45 a.m., Luca appeared one last time before leaving for the bank. Everything's in place, he said. My father has 30 men positioned around First National. Victor's bringing 40. Enzo thinks he has surprise on his side, but we've known his plan for weeks. It's going to be a massacre. It's going to be surgical. He cupped my face. I need you to understand something, Sophia. Whatever happens today, whatever you see on the news, I did it to end this, to give us a chance at something better. Luca. He kissed me then, hard and desperate, a drowning man's kiss. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. If I don't come back, he said, the vault opens automatically at midnight. Take the files. Decide what to do with them. My lawyers have instructions to protect you regardless. Don't talk like that. I have to. He stepped toward the door. Because going into this, I need to know there's something worth coming back for. Then he was gone, and I was alone with 40 years of documented crimes and the terrible knowledge that somewhere across the city, the man I'd fallen for despite every rational instinct was walking into a war zone. The hours crawled past. I monitored news feeds on my phone, watching for reports of violence downtown. At 10:37 a.m., the first alerts came through. Breaking. Active shooter situation at First National Bank, downtown Chicago. Multiple casualties reported. My hands shook as I pulled up live stream footage. Police had cordoned off the entire block. Helicopters circled overhead. Witnesses spoke of explosions, sustained gunfire, dozens of armed men. Then I saw him. Salvatore Vitelli being loaded into an ambulance, his white shirt soaked with blood. I tried calling Luca. No answer. Tried Dante. Nothing. At 11:15 a.m., a breaking news update made my blood freeze. Salvatore Vitelli, alleged Chicago crime boss, dead at scene. Son Enzo Vitelli also killed. Federal agents coordinating response. I stared at the screen. Salvatore dead. Enzo dead. But no mention of Luca or Victor Moretti. At 11:42, my phone rang. Unknown number. Sophia. Luca's voice was ragged with exhaustion and pain. It's done. Your father. Enzo poisoned his wine before we left. It was supposed to kill him during the confrontation, make it look like stress or heart failure. But Papa knew. He drank it anyway because the timing mattered more than his survival. Horror washed through me. He sacrificed himself? He wanted to make sure I'd have no choice but to finish this, that I couldn't back down at the last moment. Luca's voice broke. He died holding Enzo's hand, whispering forgiveness. And then Victor made his move and... Victor's dead too? Yes. His own people turned on him when they realized Enzo had been planning to eliminate them all along. The organization is fractured, leaderless. It'll take them months to regroup. And the FBI? Are swarming the scene, collecting evidence that will implicate both families in Agent Wade's murder and decades of other crimes. He paused. But they won't find the Antonio Reynolds files. Those are still safe. Where are you? Leaving Chicago. I can't stay here. Can't take over what my father built. Not anymore. His voice was hollow. My father's death is being reported as a heart attack. Enzo's as a casualty of gang violence. The official story keeps the Vitelli legitimate businesses clean. Luca, what are you saying? I'm saying I'm walking away, liquidating everything I can, setting up trusts for the families who depend on our businesses, and disappearing. He drew a shaky breath. And I'm asking if you'll come with me. The offer hung between us, weighted with impossibility and promise. Come where? Italy. My mother's family owns vineyards in Tuscany. Small, quiet, far from all of this. He laughed softly. I know it sounds insane. I manipulated you, put your life in danger, introduced you to a world you should never have seen. But somewhere in all that darkness, I fell in love with you, Sophia Reynolds. And I'm hoping you might give me a chance to become someone worthy of that. I should have said no. Should have hung up. Taken the files to whatever remained of the FBI task force, and returned to my simple life in Philadelphia. But I was tired of running toward other people's emergencies while ignoring my own. Tired of saving lives in the ER only to watch them return, destroyed by systems I couldn't change. Tired of being careful, sensible, safe. The files, I said. We destroy them, all of them. No insurance, no leverage. We burn it all and walk away clean. Sophia, those are my terms. We don't carry this poison forward. We let the past die. A long silence. Then, okay, we destroy them. And Luca? No more lies, no more manipulation. If we do this, we do it as partners, equals. Partners, he agreed. Equals, I promise. I looked around the vault, at the accumulated evidence of decades of crime and corruption, at the box containing my grandfather's meticulous records, at the folder detailing Enzo's operation. Then I pulled out my lighter. The paper caught quickly, flames consuming names and dates and documented murders. 40 years of carefully preserved evidence turning to ash. As the fire grew, I stepped back, watching history burn. When the vault's sprinkler system activated, I was already moving toward the exit, toward the unknown future waiting beyond these walls, toward Luca and whatever we might become together, free from the weight of our family's sins. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Your grandfather would be proud. The past doesn't own us, mija. Live your life. I smiled through tears, understanding finally that Antonio Reynolds hadn't kept those files as insurance against destruction. He'd kept them as a reminder. That terrible knowledge existed not to be used, but to be transcended. At the gallery's exit, a car waited. Luca stood beside it, bloodied but alive, his eyes finding mine across the distance. I walked toward him, each step a choice, each choice freedom. Ready? He asked as I reached him. I took his hand, feeling the calluses, the strength, the tremble of exhaustion and grief. Ready? I said. Chicago's skyline receded behind us as we drove toward O'Hare, toward Italy, toward a future we'd write ourselves. The past was burning in a vault behind us, and somewhere in the ashes was everything I'd been. The nurse, the girlfriend, the pawn in games I didn't understand. What I'd become remained to be seen. But for the first time since accepting that fateful ride from a beautiful stranger at an airport, I was choosing my own direction. And that, I decided, was enough.